Hello and welcome to Let's Talk Books. I'm Megan Cole, Teen Services Coordinator at the Powell River Public Library, and I am coming to you from my home office as the library is still closed due to these times of physical distancing. But as we've been closed, we've been trying to bring you kind of special features, including story time and tech-savvy videos to keep that connection between you and the Powell River Public Library. We're starting to we've been missing the library for a bit now. It's strange to work from home away from the community and also our co-workers. We're used to working together, so we're all kind of still adjusting to this new normal. But being able to share these moments with the larger community and talk about the things that we love so much is definitely helping. So in this video, I do exactly what the title suggests. I talk books for a few minutes and I share a bit about the books I've been reading and really enjoying, and some old favorites as well. And over the past few weeks, we've talked poetry. Last week we did a little highlight because it's still National Poetry Month. We've also talked nonfiction, we've talked fiction. I was almost going to do another novel today, but I thought I would go back to my, I guess it's probably my favorite genre, nonfiction. So we are going to get to that book in a little bit, but I thought I would spend a moment just kind of talking about the books I've been reading lately, what I've been enjoying, and maybe it'll spark some ideas for you. So the first book that I wanted to mention is one that I mentioned, I think I talked about it briefly last week, but this book here, Greenwood by Michael Christie. I had just started this book, I think, last week and finished it over the weekend. Long weekends, good for lots of reading, and I inhaled this book. It was so fantastic. I fell in love with the characters. I'm still kind of thinking about it now. It was one of those ones where I would read it and then dream about it and then wake up and want to read it more. I just really, really enjoyed the structure of it, the story, the writing is just so beautiful. So I really recommend this one. Michael Christie is an author who lives on Galiano Island as well as Victoria, and this book is currently nominated for a BC and Yukon Book Prize and was also nominated for a Giller Prize. So it is acclaimed, but for good reason. It is just such a fantastic book. So I would definitely recommend that one. And then the one I finished just after I finished Greenwood, and I'm still reading it, I'm just early into it, is this book here, All the Lives We Ever Lived, Seeking Solace in Virginia Woolf, and it is by Katherine Smythe, or Smith, I'm not sure. This book I discovered through a list online that was talking about really great memoirs that was coming out, and I love Virginia Woolf, I love memoirs, and it also is a lyric memoir, which is a style I really enjoy. That kind of moves back and forth through time, includes kind of snippets of other writing. So she writes, includes a lot from To the Lighthouse by Virginia Woolf, as well as bits from Virginia Woolf's letters and diaries. So it's really interesting that way if you're at all interested in the life and writing of Virginia Woolf. And all that Virginia Woolf stuff is paired with the story of her parents. It starts with her dad near kind of the end of his battle with cancer and alcoholism, and starts to look at the relationship that her parents had together, who they were as young people, and so on. And it's been a really great read so far, so I'm looking forward to finishing that one and sharing more with you about it next week. So the book that I wanted to spend more time with this week is this book here, which is an oldie but a goodie. It came out in 2009, so it's about 11 years old now. And it is by Ian Brown. It's called The Boy in the Moon, A Father's Search for His Disabled Son. And some of you might be familiar with Ian from his writing in the Globe and Mail. He's a very well-known journalist and has written several other books, including Freewheeling and Man Overboard. Yes, I am reading from his bio. But this book went on to win a number of awards, including the Charles Taylor Prize, and it was also a finalist for the Governor General's Award. So it got a lot of acclaim, and again, like Greenwood, for good reason. It's beautiful writing, but it's also just a really captivating story. It follows the story of him and his wife Johanna, their daughter, and their son Walker. Walker is born with a genetic mutation, and it leads to severe disability. Basically, he's dependent on his parents, unable to speak, and eventually he ends up in care, which is a very hard decision for him and Johanna to make. And the book is divided essentially into two parts. The first part is kind of a more personal story of the experience in their house, and then he starts to look outwards towards what this syndrome looks like as it manifests in other people, how it affects other parents, and so he goes on this kind of fact-seeking mission or exploration of the disease, of the disorder, and what that looks like in other people. So it is really fascinating, and the writing is just really interesting. And I wanted to share one of my favorite bits from the book. The reason I like it so much is because it just is so honest and vulnerable, which is, I think, what so many of us love about great memoir and nonfiction, is when the author kind of peels back the layers and shows the soft, squishy parts that so many of us can connect with. And this part that I'm going to read is about his marriage and how the impact of caring for Walker is having on his relationship with his wife. What was happening to our marriage? Many days it felt like a man with a lingering sickness he didn't know he had, getting weaker and thinner, but turning up for work every day nonetheless. We asked so much of each other, taking care of Walker, Johanna said one morning, explaining our mutual bad mood to me, that when it comes to looking after each other, there just isn't anything left. Estimates of the number of marriages that fail due to caring for a disabled child range between 60 and 80%. The ones that do make it through, according to other studies, are that much stronger for the challenge. I have no idea whether any of the research means anything. In our case, the grit of resentment lay like a fine dust over everything, but the prospect of leaving each other was unthinkable. There was no way we could care for Walker if we didn't do it together. With our nights divided, we were roommates as much as husband and wife. I saw Johanna in the house in the morning, carrying diapers and feed bags and heading out the door to appointments, her arms full of the sleepy boy. And at night, again as she jogged him on her knee or held him away from Haley's homework or spritzed formula into his G-tube, or, in the delicious moments when he was asleep, stretched out across the pine table in the kitchen, her cup of tea at her side, stealing time with the newspaper, which of course I resented, because I had not had time with the paper, just as she resented it when our roles were reversed. Her tea. I thought about that a lot when we were too trampled to talk, the way she reheated the cup over the course of the day, kept it by her side always, like a salve or tonic that kept her going. I became a student of her dressing gowns, the long kimono I bought her at a craft fair, the turquoise Japanese sweeper, the tiny silky one in the summer, the black all-purpose cotton she wore when winter chilled the house, my wife, that ancient word, the mother of my children, the mother of Walker. There was the sourness again. She wanted a second child. I realized I was there from the moment of conception, was there at the moment of conception, but that didn't stop me from blaming the body that produced his body. Johanna saw me from the same distracted, victimized distance. She worked at home, whereas I did not. I had a chance to slip away every day. He never escaped the burden. She does everything, I once heard a friend say at a cocktail party after someone asked how we managed. I resented the idea because I knew it wasn't true. Johanna almost always there, but because she felt everything deeply, A severe patch of pain or illness or unhappiness in Walker crushed her with sadness, and her sadness could then paralyze her. At times like that, we relied on my more earthbound mantle, my bull-headed core. Sometimes I was too tired to say hello to her in the morning, and I was often bad-tempered. She was like someone from the office you see on the street, a nod, hello, a smile, and then you were apart again. Good morning, she would say as I stumbled into the kitchen. I would grunt in response. Good morning, she would say again. I admired her, but it was hard to pony up the value-added considerations, slip in that occasional and unanticipated favor or kindness that holds together in any marriage that lasts. I saw us, more and more at a remove from a distance. There are worse arrangements, but this one never seemed to change. The negotiations over Walker were, and still are, endless. Can you take Walker to his genetics, dental, nutrition, physio, you name it, appointment on Wednesday, my wife will ask? She is organized and direct. I prefer a more neutral approach. Walker has a genetics, dental, nutrition, physio, you name it appointment tomorrow, I say, leaving my request unstated. We argue about who will take him, who took him last time, who has more or less work, who has a deadline, who is contributing the most. Money talk is radioactive. It seems impossible that Johanna could contribute any more than she does, but I am not sure where to find the extra in myself to help more. We have our private moments, our intimacies, but they are so rare and so urgent, they're like hallucinations. Nobody can say we aren't efficient. In theory, having a handicapped child could bring a family closer together, a mutual project, a joint challenge, a bond. In practice, Walker deprives us of any privacy we ever had. And we are private people, introverts, readers and ponderers. Instead of bringing us together, Walker scatters us, making us both less private and intensely more so at once, desperate for a refuge where there are no interruptions, no surprises. I often worry I will never read an entire book again. My concentration seems permanently shattered. I long ago abandoned any plans I had of owning a cottage or a vacation house. It's all we can do to make it to the medical appointments. Weeks go by without any real contact between us, and then we fight, perhaps to force some connection. The evidence of Walker's demanding presence never changes. The household stigmata of a disabled child, the mangled window blinds, in those jealousies he plays his fingers for a moment on end. The endless piles of laundry that self-propagate like jungle plants, his toothbrush in the kitchen drawer, the avalanche of potions and lotions and syringes and bottles held back by a cupboard door, all of it, with the chaos besetting us at every turn. Would it be too much for him, for her, to put the fucking milk away? But it was us, not him. I often thought so. There were other families. Maybe it was us, not him. I often thought so. There were other families. I knew they existed because I read about them on websites who seemed to cope well. We had been brilliant once, before the boy. I missed those days. And that is a little bit from The Boy in the Moon by Ian Brown, which is, as I mentioned, a beautiful book about Ian Brown and his family and their son Walker, who has a disability caused by a genetic mutation, a very rare mutation which they say impacts only about 300 people worldwide. And he eventually goes on a search to meet some of those other people to connect with who his son is. And if you are interested in that book, I can post some links as to where you can find it online. And until next week, I hope you're able to find some great books. Please share with us what you're reading, and be sure to check out the other videos that my coworkers are sharing during the library's closure. So I hope you're doing well, Take care and be cozy.